Hi, this is Sherry from Longest Stay, and we're again at Clerkenwell Design Week this week with a great designer who works for and works with BD Barcelona here. It's great that you're here, and like every time I meet a fascinating designer, I have a million questions, but let's just start with the productions that you've been doing for BD Barcelona have been based on merging art, technology, and design. And I want to hear all about your plans to how you've done that and how you plan to incorporate that in the future.
Basically, it took 3 years from the beginning till the end, which is having it here behind of us. The idea started from a dream. That's why the name Dreams. No? I had a dream, was it in 2006? And everything was pixelated, from furniture to clothing. And one of the objects I saw was this cabinet, no? Like a long, colorful, cubic kind of shape. And I met Ramon Úbeda, the creative director of BD, a while before, and I shared my impressions, and he was like, yeah, that could be a good idea. So we started to test different mediums and different ways we could visualize this exact design. And after some ups and downs, we decided that the technology was not there. First, we wanted to do something that could have the effect of the iPhone in a way, no? Like the very sleek, almost very dark, and then you could press a button and then it could light and start. But in the end we realized it was not about this. Let's do something more iconic where it's actually using digital printing into glass, and then we have a more static and stable image. And yeah, it was like, since the green light started, then it went very fast, and we launched it a couple of years ago, I think now. But yeah, it's been a very good project.
What would you say I mean, that's a really good project, but do you have other projects that you're really proud of that you want to tell us about?
Sure. I mean, basically, my background is typography, and I come from a family of artists. And since I was pretty young, I had the urge to understand the present moment where we live. And that's why I end up choosing products that have a day-to-day use, like a sofa or even a cabinet, but they have the capacity to alter and to change. For me, the narrative is the pixel as the atomic structure of an image, like the brick is the atomic structure of a building and the building of a city, no? Or the person for the multiple environments. So I like to work with analogies. So in the end, it's not that I'm trying to do anything new. What I'm trying to do is reinterpret with technology that is available today what they already saw in Roman times with the mosaic. So basically, when the human being were able to grid it, to grid everything and to map it, no? Then suddenly an image was being able to be constructed. So that is the work I do. Basically look at micro structures and try to make them visible, macro. No? So that is, and then I apply it into different products, from mirrors to tables to textiles. And, yeah, so.
But that's not what you would call the pixel creation, or is it the path to pixel creation?
What would you say is pixel creation? I don't know. I mean, for me, I always start with letterpress printing, with hand printing techniques and machines that are obsolete nowadays. They're not used for production. I use them more for an artistic process. And they come from the Gutenberg technique, which you work machines, which you work with negative spaces, no? So typographic images. So you work like in a mirror image. And for me, the obsession is to marry digital and analog technologies. Because nowadays we all speak about how digitalization is changing our lives, and true. But like Peter Blake says, and I always repeat that sentence, which marked me, is like, it doesn't matter how far technology goes, you will always end up using scissors. And that's something I like to remember and remind others. It's not, what I do is not design products for products. I have a concept that came strongly from the unconscious, and I feel I am the channel, and I need to give back what came from it. So I don't know if it's pixelization or reinterpretation, what I'm doing, but I don't feel it's mine, it's ours. You know, the dream came to me, and yeah, great, and I pay attention to it, and then I changed my whole career for it.
So tell me about your manufacturing kind of process that you do. looking just not just about some of the techniques, but a little bit more of the manufacturing side of it. Has it changed since you've been a designer? Is it kind of the same?
That's one of my positive obsessions, production. And it's something I'm not really letting go. For example, with BD, it's a relief again to work with companies like BD or Quadrat, which, you know, you come as a designer, as a creator, they put all the structure around it so you can shine, no? But for example, each product and each company will dictate in which way it's gonna be done, no? In my case, having my own company also that is mainly focused on textiles, I am at the forefront of production. But when it comes in terms of volume, you know, I learned so much from BD, and they were the ones who helped me be confident with volume. I come from paper, from 2D. So for example, in this case, there were two layers. One layer was the image, which was easy to get, you know, which kind of like pixelation you want. It had to be the size of the square, how many squares do you want it. And I tried to cheat in that one, in the way that the colorful one was very easy on the brackets. You know, it was like I work with Photoshop, also analog. First analog, I scan, then Photoshop, and then I start working the image. But then when I had to do the black and white version, so the white on black and the black on white, every time I would change in Photoshop, the colors would have either kind of moire effects or watermarks, or they could not translate well. So I say I was trying to cheat because I was trying to cut corners, because if you count, there are more than 6,000 squares. What I had to do was cut one by one, cut and paste one by one, and that was exactly what I used to do for many years at letterpress, to spend many hours preparing the plate, preparing the form, and then when it's ready, you start printing. In that case, it was the same. It was probably 8 hours a day during 8 days. Cut and paste, cut and paste. So this was a particular technique that I had to do. Then the file went and it was digitally printed. But there is hours of my time involved here. In each of the sofas, the same happens. You look at it, each one of them is different, and we will always be different because the pattern is very large. But I go to the manufacturer and I choose with the laser machine where to cut, because it's more important to me the relationship with the product, since I'm not going to meet the end consumer, and I want it to have my touch, and I hope I will be able to always do it. So it depends on the product. You have some level of attention or delegation. You need to delegate also. So each product has its own up and downs. For example, when you do curtains and with Quadrat, the brief is very clear, and there is also room for manifesting your own
Creativity.
Yes, it's almost like an open page once you give your feedback. Other products is the mold that restricts, for example. So you have the limitations of the technique. So I'm eager to learn. I mean, not coming from product design and not wanting to ever shine as a product designer, I put attention on the context, the coherence, with who you work. I work with people, not companies. And then companies back the people. So in the end, I value more a good relationship that will eventually flourish into a product or a collection or nothing, but then it's a friendship, than the money that the royalties will bring. And in that sense, that's why I set up the company also, to struggle, you know, but to have control over, not control in a negative way, but control over with who you collaborate and with who you don't. So then you can actually dictate who's the company that's going to do the packaging, which materials you're going to use, where do you manufacture. For us, we manufacture locally, and locally is Barcelona, Spain, Europe. So within 2-3 hours, you can be, and you physically go there. No more emails, you know. In the end, eye contact.
Why did you choose BD Barcelona to collaborate with, in particular?
It's one of these synchronicities, I would say, that you don't know who choose who. Because it started with a dream, and part of my dream was to work with companies like BD because of the level of quality and reputation they had. But previously to work with them, I worked with Ramon Úbeda, and Ramon Úbeda, being the creative director of BD and other projects, he had me in mind, and I became friends, and then we could bounce ideas. So when I had this idea, I was like, oh, it seems very interesting, but what about technology? What about the limitations? So it made me look into some areas that I'm not an expert at all. So BD, what I respect a lot is, for me, the only company who risks and values eclecticness in order to create a narrative. And that for me, it's today. You know, it's a if it was people, each object, it would be a multicultural brand. And that takes time because, for example, the Italians, they all have a very direct and concise style, if you would call it, Scandinavian as well. But when you look at Spanish, we are very eclectic. You know, what we have in common is that we risk, that we are not afraid, and that we are stubborn. We are. People consider us as more erratic or more, you know, about having fun or that. But you have the two sides. It's a very bipolar society in a way.
One last question, okay? I know what inspires you because you get your inspiration in your dreams. So I'm going to ask, when you switch off, do you also find that, of course, new products or new ideas come through when you're just doing something that has nothing to do with your business, if you ever do something that has nothing to do with your business, so...
Well, I guess you understood that I have a positive obsessive character. You know, I decided in 2004 I was going to only work with squares and geometric shapes, and people around me were like, it's boring. I was like, no, it's endless. So I was selfish in a way. I wanted to, when I had a brief or when I had to deliver something, I wanted to have boundaries. So then I would not reinvent the wheel or pretend that my ego was amazing and doing what no one else could. For me, it was more like, okay, knowing that everybody knows the square, and color, let's be playful, and let's be thoroughly eclectic. So it's not that I don't stop, I do stop, but I like to be in standby, kind of like holding it. Recently I discovered horse riding, and that changed my life. You know, besides helping me stop smoking 2.5 years ago, to give me the focus and the drive to be able to manage a company, pretend that I can manage myself, have a family, and then create artistic work that nobody sees, but is my therapy in a way, that then becomes a product. But I don't actively look for creating products endlessly and then I knock on doors of different companies. In fact, I have a rule. I only do a collaboration with one company, unless it's Quadrat or BD, that will be two. Because I like working with them. It's besides it's enjoyable, you know where the outcome is going to happen. I don't like to have trophies. I don't need more, I don't know. Yeah. I like boundaries. So in that sense, I do stop. But Tai Chi helps me a lot also. And it's through Tai Chi and Qigong where you connect, really. And I live in nature also, so that is the balance I have. Yeah.
Really enjoyed our conversation. I hope you have. And thanks so much for being with us.